Hey everyone, it's December 3rd, 2017, and this is your episode 123 of At Percussion. I'm your host, Casey Cangelissi, and with me as usual are Laurel Black.
Hi.
And Megan Arns.
Hello.
Ben is out. I think he's still hungover from PASIC, something like that.
That's a long time to be hungover.
Yeah, he's hungover for a good month or so now. So, yeah, we miss you, Ben. Yeah, are you guys excited for the holidays? I was shopping the other day, and I think I can't stand the holiday music. Do you guys feel that way?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the holiday music either.
It's the, I like Christmas songs, but just play them right. Don't, play with the rhythms and add cheesy accompaniments and... I don't know, I probably sound like a grumpy old crank, but I don't know, it's just lame. It's lame.
Pretty rough. And there's some good stuff out there, so find the good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about our guests. You guys, our guests today are a percussion duo that perform a varied and exciting spectrum of music, including contemporary, pop, jazz, and classical selections. Recent performances include the Percussive Art Society International Convention, the Barnes Foundation in Philadelphia, and Atlanta's Spivey Hall. Andrea Venet is a professor at the University of Northern Florida, and Annie Stevens is Laurel and I's neighbor just down the road at Virginia Tech. So please welcome the Escape 10 duo. How are y'all doing?
Good. Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And I guess some congrats are in order for PASIC, this last PASIC, because you guys played a killer showcase concert, which sadly I wasn't able to attend, but I keep hearing really, really wonderful things about it. Secondly, Virginia Tech won the University Division Percussion Ensemble, right, Annie?
Yes.
Woo! Dude, that's
and as
awesome.
Andrea would say, it was so awesome.
So awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's such a good honor and award and way to represent the Virginia area. Way to go.
Yeah, they worked really hard, and we had a really good time putting it together. I think you visited one time during our rehearsals, and but yeah, they poured it on at the end, and it came through. It's fun.
So what's new for you guys? I hear there's a new CD coming up. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of new tunes out there.
Can you tell us a little about it?
Sure. The we did a PASIC showcase concert in 2016 with a bunch of new works commissioned for percussion duo, and the focus was keyboard duo with the inclusion of accessory instruments and found instruments and pitched fun objects like gongs and Glocken and just percussive sounds. So we commissioned new pieces by Joe Locke and Michael Burrett. And we played a new tune by Ivan Trevino, 2300 Degrees, and R.L. Hollow, a piece called Fast Lane. And so it was a bunch of new, really fun stuff. And so we have recorded all that stuff for our latest album. And we did that in the summer, earlier this summer. So we're hoping to have that out by middle of next year. And if Annie wants to add any details about that.
Yeah, I think, the only tune that you didn't mention was the Sand Dunes by Kelly Ross.
That's right.
Yeah, marimba duo with some added ankle bells and cowbells. So, all of the tunes on the album have this mix of keyboards with something else. That's kind of the theme of the album.
So we have two questions about basically the logistics of being in a long-distance duo, and I'm sure Laurel can talk a bit about this, or a lot about this. So a few questions from Facebook. One is from Matt Coleman, who says, "Sweet, we had Escape 10 out a few months ago. The students loved them. How do they manage a long-distance duo, logistical issues between them? For example, do they sort of split travel and commissions, promotion, rehearsal scheduling, etc., or do things just sort of work out on their own?" Really looking forward to hearing you. And then our very own Ben Charles, although he's hungover and out, he sent the same question. He says, I was very impressed by your PASIC showcase concert, which seemed to contain a lot of new music. Being in a long-distance duo myself, I know how difficult it can be to maintain a tight-knit duo presence. Could you speak to how you're able to maintain your playing together over a distance? Is there ever any technology involved, or you just take turns flying to each other to rehearse?
Whenever we get a new piece, basically we learn our part all the way to where it's memorized, so that whenever we do get together, that we, know our part, we know pretty much the other person's part, we know how it fits together. So it cuts out the whole part of the rehearsal process that you might have had in school, where you're getting together and learning a piece together. But in this way, we kind of not really speed that process up, but we're doing that process just away from each other, learning the piece. Sometimes we have a accompanying MIDI soundtrack if it's a new piece that we can, play along with the other part. Or sometimes we'll just send rough tracks as we're learning the part. We'll just send some cuts of the new piece, maybe at a slowed down tempo. So I'll be practicing with Andrea's recording, in my office. So that's kind of how we get the pieces initially together until we actually can fly to one place or the other and glue them together.
So there's definitely like an element of virtual Escape 10 blasting in our offices, that our students walk by and hear, Annie from Virginia playing, from a recording from her iPhone to her Yeti microphone over my loudspeakers on my computer. And I think a lot of times when we do gigs together, we get together over the summer a lot and kind of in concentrated amounts of time. We'll get together for like several weeks and put together our projects and our programming for the upcoming year and the upcoming season. And I think so that's really valuable. And we've been in the duo for we started in 2012. So it's been almost, and there's my dog. Sorry about that. That's Shasti the bulldog. It's kind of interesting when you're in a duo. We had our first year together in the same place. I was living in Virginia in Newport News, and Annie got a job there. And so we started the duo when we were in the same state after knowing each other in grad school. So we got a lot of concentrated time there. And then I moved to Rochester while Annie continued to teach in Virginia. And so we were about an 10-hour drive away from each other. So we would get together and rehearse and get together over the summers. And we've sort of maintained that format where we put in a lot of time over the summer together. And then we'll split, we'll take trips. Like I'll go to Virginia for a little bit to rehearse before we start our fall gigs, or she'll come now to Florida because we're actually about the same or a day's drive away from each other now. But with our gigs, we do, like Annie said, a lot of preparation together on our own and, referencing MIDI recordings and rough recordings that we send to each other. And then we'll usually get together a day or two, usually just a day earlier than the concert, and have a day to put together everything like in the flesh in real life. And do our concerts that way. And I think when you really have developed a really great chamber experience with somebody that you know really well and that you really get along with, that's possible, I guess. And so we really know the nuances of playing with each other. And that's something really valuable and really unique, I guess, that has worked well for us over this time, having to be long distance.
Yeah, I think like going back to 2012, like having that year of the time that we actually lived in the same city a mile apart from each other and decided like, okay, we're going to form this thing. And then when we split locations a year later, we just knew like, okay, well, we really love what we're doing. We got to keep it going. It's kind of like knowing that our playing relationship started off like that really solidified things. I think that we knew we wanted to do it. And it wasn't like I was in search of a duo partner and, called Andrea on the phone or something. It was, we had that time, like make it a living and breathing thing.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that we like to tell people when they ask, like, how do you just start this chamber group that you do? And the thing that we tell, like we lived in the same place for a year and we're like, all right, we got to do this. Let's take a cross country road trip and go from Virginia Beach area to California and back. So it was a 3-week endeavor, and we did that and we got along. And if you can spend 3 weeks in a car together and get along the whole time, then you know that's something that's going to last. And so you have to have a chemistry and you have to get along with each other to make that work. So on top of like, being really being able to meld well with how we play with each other, I think you can't just go out and be like, well, I want to start a quartet, so who wants to do it? You, and you, because if you don't get along and you mesh together in the right way, it's really hard to make that work. And I guess if it's really meant to be, it's not that hard to make it work ultimately. There's a lot of hard work involved, but I think we've been really blessed in that way where it's, I think it was meant to be. So
what vehicle did you drive in across the country on that road trip?
Well, we happened to be driving in a Ford Escape, and we were driving most of the time on Interstate 10. So there you go.
I get it.
Except Annie's got an Explorer now, so
yeah, it doesn't work.
But still pretty awesome. You could pack it.
I have to say about the Escape, because I know in our profession, it's like, we're always searching for like a good vehicle or something that'll fit everything that we have. But the Escape fit a 5-octave marimba, a 4-octave vibraphone, some tam-tams, and at least 2 suitcases. What else, Andrea?
Toy piano.
Yeah.
Luggage.
So, it's a great vehicle.
We packed it, and we got really good at packing it. I mean, there's more and more space every time. When Andy picked me up from the airport, when we embarked on our trip, there was like Trader Joe's snacks vomiting into the front seat, because it was just, and we were like unloading and loading like up to 3 times a day, and we got like really good at, making it work. So,
we do this podcast long distance, so I can relate.
True.
But, Laurel, you had something to add there, I think.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, my microphone icon is not behaving. No, I was just going to say that the sending one another tracks back and forth is a really smart way to make the rehearsal process work when you don't really get one. Because like Casey said, I totally get that, being in a long distance duo. And I was curious if you've ever had a commission, because I know something else you guys do is commission a lot of works, like on that first CD. But has a composer ever been so late that you couldn't do your regular routine of memorizing and then getting together, so you had to really just expedite that whole process? Has that ever happened?
Let's see. For some of the pieces that we recently recorded, I'm trying to think. The one I think we got the latest was probably Clear Midnight, right, Andrea?
The final version, he was sending us sketches, though, like when we were together over the summer.
Yeah.
But it kind of kept getting tweaked.
Yeah.
That wasn't too bad, but that was a hard piece and a long piece. And there's a lot of sections in that piece, like the singing section in the middle, that we had to do a lot of rehearsing. Like, we knew our parts, but it was a brain tease, so we had to spend a lot of time rehearsing.
Yeah, and that often happens when you think like something is like, oh yeah, this is going to be no problem, and then all of a sudden it's like the hocketing can get really crazy in some of these pieces. So it takes a little longer than you think when you're rehearsing.
I think the fast lane came in. That was
pretty late.
He wasn't late on it though. We just
we gave him a late deadline.
Yeah, because just the way things had to work out. But that was like a really hard piece, again, with a lot of really intertwining stuff. So that, like, there's been a couple pieces in our program that have taken up the majority of our very short rehearsal time together.
Yeah. But actually, that's a great question, Laura. I think we kind of had one experience maybe early on where we decided that we would not put a piece out there if it was like, if we felt it was too late and ready to go, just based on a personal performing experience that we had trying to learn a piece fairly quickly and then just not being happy with where we had it, at the time we were scheduled to perform it. So, when that happened, we just kind of put it aside and brought something else out for the concert, which I think is really good. You have to recognize when something like that has to happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And you get so used to, like, I remember trying to transition out of grad school mode where they're like, we need you to play the Mannery Duo in 2.5 weeks. And you're like, oh, God. But you do it anyway. And then you're in real life. And I remember with Casey in West Virginia, there was this trio that I loved that I wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, we can just rehearse for a few days and then we'll do it on the concert. And it's like balls hard. Like, it's so hard. It's not something you can rehearse for a few days. But
it is so cool, though.
It's so good. It's
Trio.
such a great piece.
Yeah.
It's Odic Trio by Hiroya Miura. But yeah, switching out of that, yeah, I got time. I can do this. I can put it together really fast. It'll be great. It'll be fine. And then, it's like, no, dude, life is different when you're not in school anymore. And
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's okay. I think it's good to recognize that's not that kind of rep. Odic Trio and Mannery Duo, and I'm sure some of the duos that you all are doing, if you don't get to put it through your process and take the time it needs, it doesn't go. It's the piece is not casual music. It's not okay, let's all be professionals and learn our parts, and then it just goes together. Sometimes music is harder than that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think because of our normal is having limited time together. So I think when we get new music, we really have to front load and be really aggressive about getting the notes learned and kind of getting a sense of the whole piece and getting familiar with whatever sort of MIDI rendering or whatever recording there is. And so I think, that's our norm to kind of get it digested as fast as possible. Because that's just what we have to do. And then, we have 12-hour rehearsal days when we are together before the gig. So,
yeah, what do you got, Megan?
Yeah, I was just going to change the topic just a little bit and ask you guys about your relationship with Malletech and KPP. We've seen some great stuff come out recently because of you guys. And can you talk about how that relationship developed and kind of what's out there now and what we can expect to see in the future?
Sure.
Yeah.
Andrew, you want to start with this one?
Sure. So Annie and I both in grad school got Malletech marimbas. We bought our instruments. We really liked them. Annie went to the Stevens seminar. I never went to Stevens seminar because I was doing drum corps, but all my drum corps teachers did the Stevens seminar. So I was like a second generation disciple of that whole thing. So we had these 5-octave wide bar marimbas for several years. And then when we started the duo, we decided, well, we're going to pack up Annie's Roadster, which, considering how big that instrument is, moves very easily. And we drag that thing all over the place all the time. So we were like, okay, we love our instruments. We're going to move this and do that thing. And once we got the duo established, I think, we and I have an Imperial Grand at home. So we both have very similar instruments. I guess we approached Malletech and we're like, hey, we love these instruments. We're willing to lug them around, and, we love the product. And so I think that relationship kind of organically happened. It wasn't like, hey, it was like we already had the instruments. We'd already lived with the instruments. We already loved the instruments. We're willing to drive thousands of miles around the country with the instruments. So I think that was sort of an easy transition. And I think when we started our duo, our mission was kind of, we're going to create, our big first project was our first CD where we did a bunch of new marimba duos. So, we play all percussion, but that was our first, okay, we're going to make a marimba album. We're going to play new stuff and commission new stuff. And Lee really dug the repertoire. And so I think that kind of brought up the topic of having a KPP series for the Escape 10 Duo series. So that's, we have percussion duos written for us that are published through that series. So that's kind of where that started. Mm-hmm. And, we love our big instruments. I don't know. I think it would just kind of work out. Annie, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah. No, the only thing I was going to say is that Malletech, sometimes whenever we can't get the wide bar instruments, so we'll use the newer model, which is the Michael Burritt model. And then they also just revamped their stiletto model, and same bars as the MJB model. So it's, cool. They're doing a lot of really cool things. And, but, so we love the sound that we get on our wide bar instruments, not too much different than the ones with the more narrow bars, but that's what we prefer to play.
Cool.
Yeah, very cool. I love that you said you're already working and ready to tour, and you're loading these instruments up and you're playing, and it's already happening before you talked about sponsorship. I don't know if y'all have experienced when people say, like, how do you get sponsored? What do I do? And usually turn around and say, like, well, what are you out there doing? And someone might say, well, I can't get out there and do it because I don't have a sponsorship. Isn't why you're out there doing it because you have sponsorships? Don't you need the sponsorships to get out there and do it? It's like, no, you have to be doing that first. You have to be you have to be visible, you have to be active, you have to be working, you have to be being invited places, or they're not going to do anything for you. So
I think that you really bring up a great point, because I've had conversations with students and young people about that, where it's definitely, if you have a sponsorship, it needs to be something that you really believe in and you're willing to commit to, and you have to just be really passionate about whatever it is that you're using, that's your sound and everything like that. And I think, it's true. It's like, I think it's easy to, I need to get a sponsorship to, do what I need to be doing. But it's like, man, you got to be in love with the instrument that you're playing on and the sticks that you're using, because you're going to be living with that for a long time. And I think, you're totally right. I think a lot of young people should understand that, that you need to be in love with what you're playing and your sound that you're getting before you're, worrying about that kind of thing.
Well, and I think I feel like I've had that discussion the exact same way about publishing too. People will say, I've written these pieces and they're not getting out there. If I was just published, they would be out there. How do I get published? It's like, dude, they're not going to want to publish you if they're not already out there. Unfortunately, unfortunately, they don't really care if the piece is good. They just care if it's getting out there. Anyway, well,
it's good to talk about this stuff.
I think I'll give you guys a quick break from talking and do my little "What's the Sound" segment. So your hint this week is composer Alvin Lucier. Okay, so there you go. Any ideas?
Yeah.
Who wants to take it? I figured you guys would figure this out.
Is it the process from I'm Sitting in a Room by Alvin Lucier?
Yeah, that's right. Good job. That's cool, Megan. What do you know about that piece?
I just know that he records himself saying I am sitting in a room, and then that's like re-recorded or pumped back into the room and re-recorded, and just kind of continues until, like you just did with Bolero, it just turns basically into like a resonant frequency or something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So composer Alvin Lucier, he watched a presentation from the founder of the Bose company, who's now worth however many billions of dollars, when he was just starting, and he watched some presentation on speakers and acoustics, and he was inspired to try this I am sitting in a room experiment / sound installation composition. So of course he just records himself saying the whole process of the piece. I'm sitting in a room, unlike any room that you are in. This room has specific resonant frequencies, and he explains basically what he's going to do, and it's a pretty long chunk of text. And then after recording it, he plays it back through a speaker and re-records that, and then he takes that recording, just like Megan said, and plays that back through the same speaker, and eventually the sound kind of degrades in a way, and he explains that because every room has a specific resonating frequency, just like when you're practicing timpani and you left your snare drum on and it only seems to ring with this one drum, the snare drum is tuned to that same frequency, so it responds in that way. So any room you're in will do that as well. There are certain harmonics in my voice right now that are resonating better than others in my office. So that's something called formant, is a formant frequency. So every time it plays back, the formant frequency or resonating frequency is amplified and amplified over and over and over again until it's just this blur of sound. So yeah, my example was pretty long. It's about a minute long, but Alvin Lucier's piece can be a good 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So
really interesting.
Cool.
Nice.
What you said, it was interesting how quickly it went from discernible to not. I don't know if you manipulated it to go faster.
So yeah, that's a really good question, and that shocked me as well, because his recording, Alvin Lucier's version, it does change pretty drastically, but it's not nearly that drastic. So I was surprised how drastic both of them did, and I think that has to be because of the limitations of your microphone, the resonancies in the room, and also the speaker. So often, I don't know if y'all are talking with students about recording and listening, and they'll make certain comments, and so many of those comments, like if you've ever had someone say, yeah, this recording sucks, there's no bass, and they're playing it on their phone, like without headphones. It's like, yeah, dude, of course there's no bass, the phone can't do that. It needs to have actual physical volume to be able to produce those pitches. So yeah, of course there's no bass, but the thing it really brought to mind doing this, and anyone, you should do this, just it's so easy. Take a microphone, anything that plays it back through, and your basic audio recorder on your laptop. And I was so glad I did it. I've done it a couple of times now, and it literally just takes a couple minutes. You drag and drop the files and put them sequentially next to each other. And we talked a few episodes ago about appreciation versus just knowledge. And I think it's one thing to know what this is and be able to totally understand it or even just really enjoy it. But I really did feel a deep sense of appreciation after I tried to make it. Because, I don't know, all of a sudden, all these thoughts about quality of the speaker, quality of the microphone, quality of the hall you might be playing in, all these things that you already knew. Like, you already knew that stuff. But I don't know, I gained a really good appreciation of it, not just by listening to the piece, but actually making it. What do you got, Laurel?
Oh, it's a little off topic, but it's about kind of the sympathetic resonance you were talking about. And it's something I learned attending a vocal masterclass of all things. And it has to do with the formant that you were talking about, the formant resonance, or that might not be the exact phrase that you said, but it makes me think of, and not to speak for you guys, but there's something about hearing like a man sing that is very different than hearing a woman sing. And there's a richness there that just hits you in a different way. And it's because of the formants of the human voice. Once you couple them with the overtone series and just that a guy is starting at a lower place than a woman, that his voice actually has more sympathetic resonance available than a woman's voice does.
Is that just because of the pitch range and the vocal cords and the
it's a combination of the pitch range, but also with the placement that you have to use of like the soft palate and the tongue and the shapes of those things as you sing different vowels give you the different formant frequencies, I think. I mean, this was in May when I attended this class, so I might be remembering it wrong, but I think it's kind of the same principle at work. I think it's right. I just thought it was really, really cool.
I thought I would play for you guys a little of the actual Lucier piece. And again, I mean, really, just give this a listen. It's just such a neat idea. But I thought I would play just the opening for you and then fast forward a lot just so you see how much it changes over time.
I am sitting in a room different from the one you are in now. I am recording the sound of my speaking voice, and I am going to play it back into the room again and again until the resonant frequencies of the room reinforce themselves, so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the room articulated by speech.
And further along, so here's 19 minutes in. Let's not go that far. Here is 11 minutes in. And further along, 30 minutes. And let's go almost to the end. So people say this is one of the defining pieces of minimalism and sound installation because it's literally so much little material getting such a good variety out of it. So, Bolero
cool.
and Alvin Lucier's I'm Sitting in a Room.
There's I was reading a little bit about this on the Wikipedia page for this particular piece, and it says that in 2010 there's a YouTube user that created an homage to this piece called Video Room 1000, and he uploaded a video of himself speaking text that's similar to Lucier's, and then manually downloaded and re-uploaded it 1,000 times.
Whoa!
Over the course of a year. So basically he's demonstrating digital artifacting of audio and video analogously to Lucier's original demonstration of just the audio.
Does it degrade?
I'm sure it does. I haven't watched it. I just read this blurb.
Huh. Interesting. Wow. Okay, I'll definitely have to go check that out for sure. He has I watched an interview just to kind of get ready for this, and something that I thought was really sweet, he said. So a very recent interview this year presented by the Red Bull Music Academy, which I had no idea was a thing, but it is, and apparently they will interview Alvin Lucier, so that's really cool. Red Bull Music Academy, one of his favorite experiences regarding this piece's reception was after a performance at MIT, a 10-year-old boy came up to him and said, "That was cool." The 10-year-old boy later sent the composer his own version of the piece that he made on his laptop. He said, this is Lucier says, "Here I am, I'm 85 years old, and a 10-year-old said that was cool." I love that. I do.
Awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat that he was that tickled by that.
Super cool.
Yeah.
The only thing I was going to add is just to compare, to kind of compare it to who a lot of percussionists know more recently with Paul Lansky's percussion works, because that really reminds me of his not just more idle chatter, but that's all he's using a lot of analog and digital manipulation. So a little bit different from what you just played, but it's really neat to be able to compare those in different circumstances.
Yeah, sure.
That's
Is
cool.
that the guy that wrote Threads?
Yeah, something like that.
Cool.
He also, if I'm going to add to Paul Lansky, like sampling voices, I think there was one piece, I don't remember the name of it, but we were talking about this in percussion literature the other day, but I guess he recorded his family and his kids like making burp noises and fart noises, and like sampled this piece out of that. And I think he said he like almost lost a grant based on that piece, but then won another one.
Really?
Based on the idea of it. Yeah.
That's funny.
I think that type of thing needs to be funded.
Yeah. That sounds like something you would do, Casey.
Yeah. Yeah. They say Paul Lansky and I are like so similar. That's what the Academy says.
Yeah.
Well, I like bringing this up, and I like, people who make tape pieces today. I don't know if you guys have sat down at a modern synthesizer today, but there are just so many freaking sounds. It's so easy to make sounds, but yet something like this is so, I don't know, it's so much more real. It's so much, it's just, it's better, man. It's like Mark Applebaum says, he's so sick of sounds. He's so sick of like, ooh, neat sounds, but this is so much more than that. It's not just about the resulting sounds. I mean, it's about like the whole sound sculpture itself and what's happening to the sound. And it's not just like, ooh, neat, look at that neat sound that came out of it. It's like, no, look at this acoustical principle. Like, that's what the piece is about,
Right.
Yeah. Like this echo chamber of repetition that loses its meaning.
Yeah,
After a
there's
while.
something cooler and conceptual there other than just like, okay, I'm going to tweak with these oscillators and do all this stuff, and like, wow, I can get, I mean, there's just bottomless cool sounds on those machines these days. That's the hardest part about writing tape pieces for me, is like, okay, I just got to like decide what sounds to use, because it's just endless now. It's just so easy, and it's so easy to have very, very cool sounds. So anyway, it's
Awesome.
It seems like it would be more fun to have been doing that during Paul Lansky's time, or Lucier's time. That would have been much more adventurous. Yeah. Does anyone have a Facebook question for these guys?
Sure. Let's see here. We've got one from Charlotte Mabrey.
Oh, yeah.
And she's asking, I feel like it takes me forever to learn new pieces. What is your process to ensure progress and retention? I guess we've kind of covered this a little bit already, but.
I mean, I think in general, I think being really smart and efficient about how you dive into a piece is really important. And I think obviously like regularly reading and being able to like digest new music helps you learn music quicker and more regularly, of course. But I think kind of getting a sense of the overall piece, and kind of, I know with solo stuff and with our duo stuff, you if you can find a recording, or if you read through the whole thing and just kind of be able to get through the whole thing so you understand what you're dealing with and you have a sense of the whole piece in its entirety, is really good. So it seems like a smaller feat, and knowing the form and being able to recognize things that are repeating. And then just, I think I spend a lot of really detailed, patient, slow process time in the beginning. I guess it seems like it takes a while, being very patient. Like in an hour, I might, focus on one section and take it slow and kind of get it to where I kind of know what I want to be doing with a lot of repetition. And making sure I'm understanding what is happening, even if I can't execute it perfectly. And then I guess taking the time on the front end of that helps you know it better in the long run, as opposed to kind of just learning it measure by measure, page by page. Like students, they like to, I tell them, don't memorize this like by measure, or just start on page 1 and you have no idea what's on page 2. So I think, taking a lot of thoughtful time at the beginning and really understanding what you're doing is really helpful for the long run, being able to internalize stuff. And then it's just going back and combing through the process and being able to clean up things. And I guess just being able to get through the piece and have a sense of the big picture and the macro, and then going back over and over again, fixing stuff and cleaning stuff. Helps you to really know it, and then you retain it a lot better, as opposed to just kind of, going measure by measure, page by page, and just, I don't know. And then I read as long as I can, even if I have stuff memorized. I try to read as I memorize so that you're reinforcing the visual with the audio. But yeah, I don't know. Annie, you want to add to that?
Cool.
Yeah. One thing that I've always kind of been really big on is I keep a practice journal or something. And I like to have goals kind of spelled out. Like I need to have up to such and such, learned or memorized, whatever it might be, by this date. And so like, I'll kind of I'll reassess everything kind of like week by week if I'm learning a new piece and see so that I can like reach the goal that I've set. So for me, it's just nice to see it written down on paper, like, okay, this is what I did yesterday. This is what I need to do today. And so I can see how I can get there from like a week to week basis.
Yeah.
We were hanging out last night with one of your new commission composers, Eric Ginnivan.
Yeah.
Yeah, who works with us here at JMU. And he said that he just finished a movement for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen it yet? His music's so cool, but it's also really hard.
Yeah. It's he's like, yeah, it looks really awesome. He's like, let me know if it's too crazy. It's okay.
Yeah. But we should mention that Eric won that grant from the Fromm Foundation, which is the grant that Harvard awards. So we're really, really excited for him to get that. And this is going to be a really cool multi-movement piece for just marimba duo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool for him because Casey's played a trio of his that had like every instrument imaginable. And and they were all holding like triangle beaters and vibe mallets and gong mallets and all these at the same time playing this piece. And so I'm really stoked to see what Eric's going to write for you guys with just two marimbas.
Yeah. We're really excited.
Yes, he's got some great ideas. There's a lot of virtuosic writing in what he's doing. So we're excited too.
Megan, you want to tell us a little about the Silk Road Ensemble?
Sure. I would love to. So the Silk Road Ensemble it's not a percussion duo, so it doesn't really relate exactly to Escape 10. But I think, there's a lot going on in the news these days, and sometimes it's hard to stay positive about what's going on in our country. And some therapy I have found is to search for people, musicians and artists who are doing work to try to change the political scene or just doing good work for humanity in general in some way using, some kind of political statement in their music. And I think the Silk Road Ensemble is an ensemble that comes to my mind first. And they recently came back into my email box. And so I decided that I would share a little bit about them for those of you who are not familiar with the Silk Road Ensemble. The mission, which is just all these different colors on the top of their website, is this. Silk Road creates music that engages difference, sparking radical cultural collaboration and passion-driven learning to build a hopeful world. And they say in the first line of their bio, when we create music together, we listen to our differences, connecting and creating meaning from them. So this group has won Grammys. They was started by Yo-Yo Ma. It was kind of his passion project, his idea. But it's a collective, and so it consists of anywhere from 2 to 3 musicians in a gallery or up to 18 musicians in a concert hall or in a public square or in an amphitheater. So it's a collective, and this collective of musicians represents dozens of nationalities and different traditional and contemporary artistic traditions. They're from Spain to Japan, they're from Syria, they're from the United States, they're from all over the world. So it's really a collective not only of different styles of music, but different cultures and traditions. And these people are not just musicians, but they're also teachers, they're producers, and they're advocates. And they have many learning programs that they have taken into schools. They have residencies in museums, different communities of all sizes all around the world. They experiment with new media, new genres, and they partner to share Silk Road's approach to radical cultural collaboration. That's kind of the mission. They're they're performing all over the world on a regular basis, and they've recorded 6 albums that are just their own. And it's the one that won a Grammy is Sing Me Home. It was developed along a documentary called The Music of Strangers in 2016. So that's one of the projects. I just wanted to highlight a few of their projects. And one of them is this film, The Music of Strangers. Have any of you seen this?
No.
Mm-mm.
I haven't either. I watched the trailer, and it was actually in Colombia last year, and I had a concert at the same time. I was devastated, but it's out on DVD now. So I think it's still at some independent film festivals, but it's called Music of Strangers. It's Grammy nominated, and it was created by Yo-Yo Ma and the Silk Road Ensemble. And what it does is it follows members of the ensemble as they gather in different locations across the world and explores the way that art can both preserve traditions and shape cultural evolution. So it kind of is this mix of footage of performances, interviews of these musicians, and also archival films. It's directed by an Oscar-winning director, Morgan Neville, and produced by Katrin Rogers. And it's kind of following these personal journeys of a small group of the Silk Road Ensemble. And those musicians are Kinan Azmeh, who's from Syria, Kayan Kalhori from Iran, Yo-Yo Ma, France and United States, Wu Man, China, and Cristina Pato from Spain. So it's kind of looking at their journeys and their individual stories, and it sort of portrays these portraits of their lives in different parts of the world. And it's described as a bold musical experiment in a global search for the ties that bind. Like I said, it's available on DVD now, so you can check it out. And there's also a really cool part on the website that's a resource for teachers. So there's a curriculum guide that you can download for free. So if you're showing this film in your classroom, or, you know, as part of a project or an after-school activity or something, there's this curriculum guide that can kind of help you start conversations, have difficult dialogues, do projects, things like that. So that's one thing, the film. The albums, I mentioned they have 6 different albums. Those are called Sing Me Home, the one that won the Grammy, A Playlist Without Borders, Off the Map, New Possibilities, and then 2 called Silk Road Journeys, one Beyond the Horizon and one When Strangers Meet. So they all explore different styles of music from around the world, feature different musicians, and they're really cool. They have lots of great YouTube videos as well. So if you don't have one of their albums, you might start by going on their Instagram page, their YouTube page, or they also have a great SoundCloud page. Another project, 2 more projects I want to mention. One is a dance and music production called Layla and Majnun. It's based on a Persian love story from the 7th century. And it's an evening-length production, so just one story. And it's by the Mark Morris Dance Group, and the music is from the Silk Road Ensemble, as well as musicians Alim Kasimov and Farganda Kasimova. I hope I'm somewhat pronouncing those correctly. But the piece recounts a story called Romeo and Juliet of the East by Lord Byron. And it has dance and music, and there are some clips online that you can check out. But it opened in the fall of 2016, and it's touring now all over. So they have some performances in Chicago, Harris Dance Theater, and different things throughout the spring. So you can check out to see if they're going to be near you. And that third project I wanted to mention is called the Global Musicians Workshop. And this is something that anyone can attend. You can apply online. I think the deadline for financial aid is February 8th, and it takes place for a couple of weeks on the DePauw campus in Indiana at the end of June through the beginning of July. It was created by another cellist of the ensemble, Mike Block, and it's designed to foster a community of globally minded musicians, helping artists to learn from one another's traditions and incorporate them into their own voices. This kind of reminds me of the One Beat project I have reported on here on the podcast before. But the faculty is amazing. The faculty is all Silk Road Ensemble members. So for those of you who are percussionists, speaking to the listeners of our podcast, Shane Shanahan is one of the faculty members, and he's a member of Silk Road and an incredible frame drummer if you haven't seen him before. But it includes workshops. It's a week-long session, includes workshops, community building exercises, band rehearsals, faculty and participant concerts for the local community, and evening conversations about what it means to be a musician in the 21st century. Participants can also apply for an intensive performance experience, which offers deep dives into select musical cultures and styles. You have to be over 18 years of age, and you can be from any musical background. You can be a university and or conservatory student, professional performer, teachers. Your background can be in Western, classical, jazz, world, folk styles. Anyone is encouraged to apply. So it's really a diverse collection of people that they're bringing together there. So that's a little bit about the Silk Road Ensemble and some of their projects that they have that aren't just the ensemble.
Yeah, thanks,
Cool.
Maggie.
Yeah.
I know that's about so much more than just Yo-Yo Ma, but he's one of those people that every story I've ever heard about Yo-Yo Ma is just the sweetest story. Like, they're only good stories.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He was at Virginia Tech like 3 weeks ago, and such
awesome.
a nice guy. My husband got to meet him because he teaches violin here, and he takes the time to take a picture with you and have a conversation. He's just, an all around good person, and he will keep giving that master class until somebody yanks him off the stage. He's not looking at a watch.
Wow.
Yeah. That is the story everybody says. Just, I met him and we talked, and then da-da-da-da. And my duo partner is in Chicago, and she was in Civic for 2 years, and Yo-Yo is really connected to them. And he remembers her name, and anytime he sees her, he asks her, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your duo? And it's just like, how the hell do you remember to ask?
Wow.
That's amazing.
Like that. Yeah, it's just incredible, dude.
Wow. Very cool. Well, I think we have one more Facebook question. Laurel, would you mind doing that Facebook question from Ben?
So back to the subject of commissioning and working with composers. Ben asks, how do you as a duo work with them, seeing as it can be difficult to workshop pieces, because you guys aren't together, and then, of course, the composer's probably somewhere else. Do you feel it's a collaborative effort, or do you try to ask for a certain type of piece from a composer and then see what comes out? How do you guys approach that?
Go. You can go ahead first, Annie.
I think we usually try to reference a piece that we really enjoy, that we could see going in a direction relevant to what we're asking for as either a keyboard duo or a percussion duo. So like in the case of R.L. Hollow, we were looking for just he's really well known for Jose Before John pieces that are very virtuosic, and we wanted a short virtuosic piece from him in that style. And so that, that's kind of what we gave him to go off of. And in the case of like Eric Ginnivan's new piece for us, he's been shooting us examples back and forth saying, what do you think about this? And really being open to lots of feedback. So we've been fortunate to work with all the composers that we have really been open to our ideas.
And I think, when we are seeking out composers to work with, we make a really thoughtful effort to look at music we really enjoy and look at their body of repertoire and see if it speaks to us. And so when we, seek out these collaborations, we're looking for people where we already really, really enjoy their music. And so I guess that the styles kind of align. And if they're willing to work with us, then we try to be as specific as possible on kind of what we're looking for. And we've been really lucky with all the composers that we work with. They've been very receptive to really work with us and send us examples and just find something that we really enjoy, and been really sensitive to. If this is not working, it's totally cool. We can change it. And I think just seeking out living composers who we just really like their tunes already, I think that's really helpful, because we can work with different composers that have very different styles, but envision something of their creation that could be for us. So I think that's a good starting point, I suppose. Is just you got to dig their tunes and identify with their style. We've been really lucky because they've been really really flexible to work with, and
yeah.
Would you guys be into 2 measures of bolero, but it gets repeated over and over and then re-recorded? I could write that for you.
Yes.
Oh wait, I already did. We'll have to take that as a no.
How often do you actually have to tell composers, hey, this really doesn't work? Or do you try to avoid doing that? Or are you just quick to say, no, dude, it's too awkward. Write something else.
Mm-hmm. Good question.
I don't think we've had to do that too much, right, Annie?
No, I think the composer has always asked, like, is this possible? Like, there was a case with Ivan Tribunal. We had asked him for something that was like cross marimba, where I was playing on the high end of Andrea's marimba and she was playing across on mine. And he just said, let me know. And we definitely had to have him go back to the drawing board in a few spots. So the people that we have, commissioned definitely are receptive to changes. So that's good.
Another one of our recent commissions by Michael Burrett, Clear Midnight. I know that, Michael Burrett likes to write a lot of notes. And it's really awesome. But it's funny because I know we were like, you get that kind of music and you're like running that lick measure, 92, like, a bunch of times a day. And you're like, I'm going to get it. I'm really going to get it. It's totally possible. And it's funny because when he would update scores and, we would just talk to him, he'd be like, are you sure that's okay, man? He's like, I want to make sure that, anybody who buys the score can play it. And it's kind of funny because sometimes it's like, we're like, yeah, we can do it. And you're like talking, the composer into it'll be fine. It's tricky, but I think it can happen. And in that situation, I think it was like, he like took out 1/16th note of some licks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point that it's not just you. It's like, it's the composer is probably concerned with, can other people do it as well? That's a good point. Is their piece going to sound good?
But I think, everybody we've worked with, it's kind of, it hasn't been anything really insane. That's just like, this is not working, Yeah. I don't think we've ever with that.
Yeah, it can feel like such a fine line, I guess, between like wanting something to be possible, like, no, I can do it, I really can. And then just having to say no. And I remember Nancy talking about getting the first finished draft of Hop from 3 Moves. Mm-hmm. And she said every 16th note, there were 4 notes. And she was like, she edited it down like crazy. And so the thing that we know is Nancy just taking out as much as she could, but have it still resemble what he gave her.
I can't imagine it with 4 notes on every one of those. That seems so...
I know.
It already seems like there's so many notes. Like you could still take out notes.
Yeah.
And it would be okay.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the players have to do a lot of teaching. I mean, that's just... We love to say, like, oh, we live in such an exciting time, and there's so much rep to be written, and we need so much new rep, and it's important, I think, to recognize that all the really historical rep, those composers could play. Like, Beethoven could play. he could play piano. Like, there's a reason his piano rep is and of course there were composers that could play, but their rep wasn't good. But it seems like it takes one that is both to kind of teach the world how to do it. I mean, if history has anything to say about it. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's great that you guys are doing these collaborations, and it's great that Nancy did that collaboration, and so on and so forth. I was going to ask, are there any classic marimba duos? That's a funny term. Like, you guys do Nagoya marimbas or Rich O'Meara wooden music or anything like that?
Well, when we first started playing, we what are the pieces that Nancy and Jack Van Geem recorded, Andrea?
Yeah. Oh, it was 8 tarot cards.
Yes. Which I don't know how often that shows
up.
Thomas
Obo Lee.
Yes. We started with pieces like that piece, and then the Séjourné. What was Departures. I'm going back to this first concert that we played together, because that was when we were like, okay, let's get this together. What exists out there? And so we were playing more pieces like that. I have played Nagoya marimbas, but not with Andrea. So we have not done that yet. So we decided at that point, though, that we were going to kind of take it in our own direction and do these new pieces and arrangements. So we've talked about getting some standards together. So maybe in the horizon.
I guess like the vinyl stuff we did. I mean, that's pretty new, but that's really hip and it's very popular now. So that was one of the earlier things we latched on to. But I mean, it's crazy in the time that we've been a duo since like 2012. There are so many more percussion duos now than there were when we started. You know, like back then it was like, Wooden Music and Vertical River. I think Into the Air was out. So we played that on our big road trip. And then we came up with arrangements and pop duo, like the first version of our Radiohead duo. We did some Vampire Weekend and U2 because we were trying to fill out full concerts of like stuff that was written and then, stuff that would be entertaining to wide audiences. But there's so much music out there now. It's just that the landscape is totally different in terms of duo repertoire.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us on episode 123.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yes, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, sure. And I would just encourage everyone, if you'll easily find Escape 10 all over YouTube, and it's what you'll see there is great, but I would also encourage you to check out their SoundCloud pages because there's a lot more things to see there. Yeah, so I knew about these guys on YouTube for years, and it wasn't until fairly recently that I got around to SoundCloud and finding them. So you can find that from their websites, and yeah, I would really recommend doing that because there's a whole lot there.
Thanks.
Yeah. So okay, great. Hey, well, thanks, Megan Laurel and Annie Stevens and Andrea Venet. Good to see you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.